Hey, David. Hey, Boone. I think this week, Jeff had some stuff he wanted to present, so we'll just wait for him to join and hopefully able to do it. I unfortunately am on the road at the moment, so I'm dialing it from my cell phone, so I can't screen share. So hopefully Jeff will be able to screen share the documents he wanted to discuss.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Brian. Are we waiting for others to join or?
Just you, Jeff, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Um, yeah, unfortunately, I'm on the road at the moment, and so I can't screen share or anything like that. But I was hoping what you could show some of the documents you shared with me recently, and we could talk about them a little bit.
Okay. Can you see the screen or is
Yeah,
that?
I can see the screen.
Okay.
I'm not driving, but I don't have my computer.
Gotcha. I need to go find them here. Hold on. So you want to look at maybe the C to C mapping or?
Um, that or the chai. Um, Well, I guess so you shared three things with me recently. One was a spec organization discussion, which I wasn't quite clear what you were trying to convey in that document.
Okay.
And then the other one was the edits of the Chai current profile.
Yeah, I mean that was just reconciling between the Veyron V1 profile and the Chai variant we have, which I think what I've done is I've just put in the edits in the V1 variant that would actually make it equivalent to the Chai. So I think the thing maybe to talk about is the Chai C2C
Okay.
document. Okay, so let me put that up. You see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I did is I went and looked at the AMBA Chai C2C specification and listed out all of their message protocols organizations that go into the mapping to uh, the UCIe FLIT, right?
Yep.
At the top here is just the different types of protocols. So they have like message type, which I think is very similar to the TLP type that we have.
Mhm.
I mean, we have different ones, but I mean that it represents kind of the same thing. And they have short and long. Here's a short and long request packet, the SNL, and then the response has a single response, two responses in a single message, they call it, and then Snoop. And on our side, kind of what we've defined is um, a request that's like CMP or compressed, which would be the short format, and the long format would be standard. And so I've just kind of tried to map those two. As you go down in the rows here, so this is all the request messages. I'm listing the short and the long in different columns, and here you can see the compressed and the standard. These are the total signal count that is in the C2C specification. They actually report this one, which is the total minus the reserved bits that are zeroed. So this is the actual number of bits I think that are transferred, but this is what they count in the spec. And this is kind of what we would have on our side, on the OCP side of things. I went ahead and included the message type here, which I think the format is a type 7-bit, reserved 1 bit, and an aux field, which is 5 bits. And this actually gets packed in the TLL, where it's actually part of the message type on C2C.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so then what I did is I went ahead and just kind of on each row, looking at their signals, what signals we have in our variants. And then since this follows the C2C order, I put the order that we would order them and how we would send them out on the TLO. The TLP flits or mess.
So, yeah, I noticed you putting the orders on here. Does we think the order really matters for this? I mean, people will probably just swizzle the wires either way, right?
Well, I think it matters for us, right? Because it's the number of LLPs, packets that we send out. So when we worked on those variants,
No. I meant the ordering, not the total number of wires, total number of bits.
I'm not following.
So these are field orders you're talking about? The order of the field in the packet?
Yes. In
Right.
the TLP, right? But the TLP gets broken up into LLPs.
Yeah. So
And
I guess my,
that
my, my
order
point is that
matters.
you have to have a full packet on the other side though before you can really decode it either way. So the ordering of the fields within the TLP, I mean, it matters obviously to specify, but does it really matter that we match their ordering? Was my point.
No, I don't think it does. I mean, we have our own ordering here. And we don't need to match theirs, but I was just, since what I was trying to do is correlate which signals we're transmitting and which they are.
Yeah, sure.
Just get an idea of what we've left off.
Yeah, no, I get that. We don't want people having to make Sophie's choice on extra
Right.
ID bits and things like that. So I totally get that. I just want to make sure. I noticed that the ordering was in here. I didn't know if you were seeing something that I wasn't in terms of that mattering, I guess.
No, but I guess the reason I kind of started to do this is because I wanted to create a variant for Chai C2C.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of looking at what they have, and the question I have is, can you reorder their order, right? That's in the C2C specification.
Well,
That'd be one.
yeah, I don't think that's an issue, right? I mean, yes, absolutely. And the reason I say that is because you can't use their packet as is either way because of the reserve bits, because you're not going to want to just transmit 100 bits of zeros for no reason, right? So um, they have to, break out the fields either way from that. You can't just, have a packet coming out of a Chi C to Z controller and then just use that, forget the term, unmolested, to go into the link layer, right? You either have to use it from like a bus, or you have to, like we were talking about before, pick another format or whatever, right? Otherwise, it's just wasteful.
Yeah, and I
So
think the way this is implemented,
swizzling the order at that point shouldn't matter, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
hmm, maybe because I just don't know how it's implemented in the IP. Let's say some knock IP that would have a C2C interface. I'm not sure if that's coming out serially in time, and they're kind of taking chunks. Um, and so I don't know
Oh,
if
I see what you're saying. So if they have it split and across, okay, all right, yeah, I can see how you're saying that.
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know for sure either, but I know in the past, the CXS. I think this is just another version of CXS that they've renamed, right?
Yeah, but mm, their fabric had a specific node for CXS that converted chai into CXS, right? So whether it was not like
Yeah, it's a gateway, the gateway IP.
see the CXG. I'm trying to think about like what would that would be equivalent for C to C here. I mean, you'd still know if you're able to trim the zeros, you have to know the rest of the field orders though, right? I think it's one or the other.
I didn't follow what you said.
So we're assuming we're trimming the zeros, right? The what they call the RSVCD
Yeah,
zeros, whatever.
yeah.
If we're doing that, that means we know that field, right? Like we know that part of the packet either way. And if we know that part of the packet, then we should be able to know the other parts of the packet, right?
Okay. Well,
So
I,
if you
I mean, I
if
agree
you
with you. You could skip because if you have controllers on either side of the link, then you can skip any of these signals, right? It's just, I don't know if you can change the order because of how they might be coming out of another block in some IP.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I
if
see what
you're
you're saying.
intercepting
So
the
if you're only if you're
HI bus, then you have all the signals there, right? But at some point, they're serializing to get out on a CXS type interface, a downstream.
um
And I don't know if
yeah,
this is something new, but
possibly.
I don't know if C to C is all new at this point. I get the sense that it's a re-encoding of the CXS that went from
Well,
CXS to CXS.B, and now it's C to C.
yeah, I mean they're both just chai fields packed into
Yep.
packets, right?
Yep.
The CXS though, you had a lot more like padding and stuff. Like it was much more uh if I remember correctly, and again it's been a while since I looked at the spec. It's a little bit, it's pretty inefficient actually, but it's packing individual like types with a lot more zeros and stuff like that. You're packing less into these transports.
Hmm.
But so I don't. It probably is based on that same IP, but it definitely does something different when they're putting the fields into the packets.
Yeah. But and then I don't know if you really want to cut out the reserve zeros because I'm assuming they're reserving those for future signaling. So at some point they're going to probably put them in.
So yeah, no, I looked at this document yesterday, and so I went back into the Chai C spec and like, what's the point of these? And it literally just says, yeah, these are all just zeros wherever we needed to pad. So it is literally just padding. Now
Okay.
you're right that they have the right to just add random stuff later, but I think that would be a new version, in my opinion. I don't think they're using them for anything.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense that they were padding, but I'll have to go
No,
back.
well, so it literally says in the spec that these must be sent out as zeros from the sender side,
Hmm.
and that on the receiver side to expect zeros. And if they're not zero, then it's an error. And so, and again, it literally says as well that the sizing of this is based on well, like I said, we didn't. I don't know if it used the word padding, but it was similar verbiage.
Hmm. Okay.
So I don't think there's any harm in it. Again, you're right that they could use these bits in the future, but
Hmm.
um, and we can. I think it's fine if we want to have some of these, but we should just trim it to our granular alignment rather than using their 111 bits on the command or something like that. It was a crazy length, right? So
Hmm.
there seems like a lot of inefficiency,
Yeah.
and it's on the end too. So if you want to keep the ordering, you can just trim just that. If you
Hmm. Did you understand the common fields or columns they had in the spec? This, C012. I'm not sure I picked up on
you
what
mean
that.
the long or short?
Well,
Sorry, I cut it.
they in the C2C spec, they've got this column for common placements, and I'm not sure what those mean at this point.
Oh,
Motivation for them.
I don't remember. I'll take a look offline. I don't. That didn't stick out to me. I don't think I saw that. You
Okay.
mean like common signals between the two long and short packet types, or
I think so, yeah. But I see that they're also repeating a number, like sometimes, it increases in different messages. Like here you have C6, which is beyond anything that you have in the request. You have it in the response. But then I see the numbers will go back down to 0 in other packets.
All right, can you show me the field again?
This one, I've
Oh,
annotated it here.
so they label them as a comment. I see.
It's a common placement, and I'm not quite sure I understand what it's related to at this point, and if it's even
Okay.
for us, right?
Okay.
But I
I'll
think,
try and reread it and see if I can rock that too.
okay. And then they have a write request data, message, which we don't have. And then there are other places where there's some interesting things like they'll cut out the byte enables for the short packet size. We didn't do that, so that might be something interesting to consider. So I think there's some interesting ideas that might be in C2C that could be applied to the variant mappings if we decide to change those over time.
I would be really hesitant to cop out to take out the fighting.
Yeah, yeah. I highlighted kind of where there's some interesting points that we could consider.
Yeah. So what are you thinking, Jeff? Like this would still be a separate profile, a separate bus protocol variant, right? For to do
Yeah.
the C2C.
For C2C, yes.
Yeah.
And this is a way
Okay.
of, just kind of looking at how we've defined the CHI variant, how it's different from C2C. Maybe we choose to align it in some ways, I don't know, or we take some of the ideas from C2C into the CHI. And my sense is that maybe CHI, it shouldn't be this variant shouldn't be encoded as issue E. I know we did it that way because that was the issue of the spec that we were going to be compliant to. But in general, I think as ARM just releases other chai issues or versions, it's adding signals and different features, right? That we could add to CHI variant over time.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, like our AXI bus protocol variant is specifically AXA5, right? And you could use 4 on it, right?
Yeah,
Because it's kind of backwards compatible, but but it's specifically for AXI5. Having this variant tied to issue E or whatever, I think is perfectly valid.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And then I tried to also start to map the AXI 5, try to map it to C2C because it's unclear to me if their ARM is proposing, I think, only using C2C. And I don't know how
Yeah,
we would bridge that.
you
I
bridge it by
don't
buying their interconnect.
know.
So my impression from ARM strategy is to sell more
Yeah,
instances of CMN,
yeah,
whatever it is now, 600
yeah,
or whatever. And so yeah, they want you to use their, I can't remember, the RN, whatever their RN conversion or RN. Yeah, all right. Use their bridge that goes from AXI to Chai in their fabric that then bridge back down from Chai to C2C. And I've yelled at them before about this. Like
yeah.
why don't we have a way just to do die to die with this? And
Mhm.
and they're always like they always waffle on it, but I think it's a business decision. So there's not a I mean, from a an external point of view, if you're making your own bridge,
Mhm.
um, it's not a clean conversion, right? Because there's a lot of concepts in Chai that just aren't in AXI, right? So you'd have to make a bunch of system level assumptions or add some address decoders or whatever the case may be. So
Okay.
it's not something you want to put on a lightweight system if you don't really have to. So, and that's just not the target market that they feel that Chiplet should be in, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so that would tend to say that you just would need a CMN knock, right? Because they they handle all the inputs like AXI into the knock. It gets converted to a CHI protocol, and then eventually downstream it gets converted to C2C.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I will applaud them. The C2C is a lot is better documented than CXS was.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to make their own CXG on their own knock and use some of these concepts to tie into a CMM on the
Mhm.
other side, I think people are more capable of doing that than they were with the previous spec. The CXS was kind of documented in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I mean, for our purposes, I think if a customer is using AXI, they're just going to use AXI, right? And we'll use our, or use a profile that favors AXI rather than bridging to C2C back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with this right now, the state of this. I was looking for your input and also input from David. I haven't got any input from him yet. But at some point, we need to figure out how we want to go define this C2C variant.
So hold on one second.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think this system could work. Um, I think the debatable points here are really like we talked about earlier are on the ordering. We want to just keep it the same order for implementation's sake, and I don't have a good path to finding out what the implementations that are out there look like right now. So
Mhm.
if we want to, like you said, keep it safe just in case, I think that's a fine decision as well.
Mhm.
Um, what other decision points do you feel like there are? I mean, there's the trimming zeros, which we mentioned earlier, which I think
Mhm.
probably want to do, or at least make the zeros align to our granule size. But Kim, what other decision points do you see in this when making this protocol variant?
Um, well, I think we should maybe look at the order of our variants, and see if it makes sense to reorder or if there's any ideas in C2C that we could make improvements to our variants. We might want to consider that. I know we published the V1 profile, but that's kind of bespoke, and so I think ultimately, I don't know if anybody's really implemented to these variants yet. I get a sense that nobody has at this point, so now would be the time to do it.
Nobody said anything, at least not to me.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I'm going to come back to my original statement, like in terms of like field orders. Again, I don't mind if we want to reorder, just to be a little more farm friendly. But I'm a little unclear whether it really matters at the end of the day, because I think people will. I think I mean, if you're trying to intercept an existing implementation, like you said, there's already a I6C converter and serialize something like that, whatever. Um, that I think making the order really matters. But for any other implementation, do we think the order of the fields matters that much?
Well, what I'm thinking about is, like how on the AXI variant, you've got you find the min, the base, the ace light, and the extended.
Mhm.
I'm assuming those are going in similar orders, right? So you do the min,
Yes,
and then you add signals to get to the base.
correct. Yeah, where possible, because some of them are. It's not a strict subset because some of the field links change, right? But the ordering is the same. Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Like, yeah, I can't just trim down one to get the other one because you have more ID number bits or whatever.
Hmm. But okay, but I mean the field widths might change, but the order of the fields going out is the same, right? It's common across
Yeah,
all of them?
as far as I remember, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, I think well, we may have changed some stuff, but I think I used the field order that was in the AXI specification because I just, you know, everything started out by just copying their tables into an Excel sheet, and I kept that same order.
Mhm.
Again, but their order, to my mind, didn't matter either, right? I mean, it might end up correlating to what the bus is on, what the bus looks like on the silicon, but you need to move those wires around. It never. I mean, people do that all the time, so I don't think it was a. You know, again, I don't. When you I guess when you look at implementations, they don't necessarily take the standardized order that comes out of the spec, right? It's whatever makes sense in their implementation. So a lot of things get shuffled around as long as the fields are consistent. So and so people will have to shuffle those wires around all the time as long as you're tying fields to fields.
Yeah.
So again, I think it matters for, like you're saying, intercepting implementations and stuff. Not sure it necessarily matters for other implementations, but again, I don't have a lot of, I've got no dog in that fight, right? Because I don't care. If we
Right.
think that there is we think there is a reason to follow, for instance, C2C's order, like you were saying for implementations, then I have no problem us moving things around. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, whether it's a big deal for other people, I just don't.
Right. And I think it has to do with, if your signals that you don't have to transmit over the link and save the number of LLPs you need to transmit, can you just maintain the state? Like, or force those non-transmitted bits to some kind of state, default state, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Mhm.
Um,
And I don't know.
I think the only problem we run into is like the combinatorial issue. Like what we can have like if so okay, so just C2C in their long short definition,
Mhm.
they explicitly say if you're doing a short and you're tying to a bigger bus that has more wires, then you set any extra wires to zero. They explicitly say that. So, and we can say the same thing in ours or something similar, or
Mhm.
we can add a default value and not not populate it or something like that if it is an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the way we document ours too is maybe it makes sense, but I kind of like the way C2C is defining it, where you've got the order of fields as they go out and the width of them. And I don't know why we listed, I think ours, the first that go out is at the bottom of the table and it progresses to the top.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. So there's just little things like that that I think we should discuss maybe before we really go live with all this stuff.
Oh, so I went ahead and I didn't put any profiles in the profile directory, but I did put all of our current
Yeah.
bus protocol variant PDFs. I PDF them and put them in the bus protocol variant folders.
Yeah.
But I think us making new versions of these things, again, they're not meant to be at least at this stage, not meant to be standards. They're meant to be examples on how to do these things. So if we need to rev them up and just, I think we should feel free to at this point, um, deprecate anything we think is confusing or whatever and rev them up. There's
Mhm.
not a, there's no standard there at this point.
Right. Okay. And then I think in terms of the profiles, it would be interesting to start to define new profiles. And the one thing we were thinking about on our side from Ventana was this Veyron V1 could be, the start of trying to come up with a general compute profile for, fully coherent interface. So
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that was kind of the assumption before anyway, because that was the only profile we really had. Oh, yeah, I
it-
think, well, there's like a AXI profile or whatever, but like we don't have any other competing profiles at this point. So again, if you want to be the, the fully coherent profile, yeah, just, I think that's fine. If you need to add anything to it, just make a proposal. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty simple. It's just a chai master and an AXI light slave, right?
yes.
So I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But the thing I don't like about the V1 profile right now is that it has its own variants in it. So it's not
Yeah.
referring to the variants that we have in the variants repo. So that's
Yeah.
what I would like to kind of, that's why I was trying to align it to what we have defined as a variant.
Okay. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, and the I guess one question about the compressed versus standard, are we treating those like individual variants, or will the controller make a decision between which one to send based on the chai packet? Because right now they're separate packets, right? They're not variants right now. But I don't know if we discuss the decision process on when to send compressed and when to send standard. And if you're only sending one,
Yeah,
why have both LLP types? Why don't you just do, or sorry, TLP types? Why have both TLP types? Why not just have two different profiles?
because I think they're used interchangeably. They can be concurrent on an interface. You can transfer
Okay.
one or the other.
Do we talk about what makes that decision?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
All right, because that was that. When I first read that, I just assumed you'd pick one, but then I think realized when I was going back through it for this, I didn't remember seeing anything like that, or why you needed both. I mean, because they are basically different field widths and different um, field selections.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure why that would be a dynamic decision.
Yeah, I need to go back and check that. But
Maybe,
yeah.
yeah, maybe David has a little can talk a little bit about what the decision process there is in terms of
Hmm.
packet type selection.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask them about that. Okay.
Um, I think the other thing that you had shared was the spec reordering thing. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Um, Not particularly. I guess what I started to think about is if we were to move the TLL spec to something that is more agnostic, then maybe some of those sections in the document might move to, let's see, the BAO-FI document.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was wondering what you were trying to say there. Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to talk to a lot about that.
Yeah.
They seem to like want to not take that kind of stuff in for some weird reason.
Okay.
So, but last time I talked to him about this was years ago. So who knows?
Okay.
And I never go to those meetings either. So I think that's something we'll have to talk to a lot about, like where his current feelings are.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like looking at what UCIe has done, right? And
Yeah.
do that kind of partitioning between the link layer and the PHY includes the adaption layer, right? Adapter.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So yeah,
They've intentionally, I think, steered away from that. But again, that reasoning may be outdated.
yeah. So either, I guess you just leave this spec BOW specific, and then, like we've been talking about, you add an appendix or whatever for the UCIe bindings. But then there's some sections that don't really apply to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
that's
yeah,
what I was trying to
I
figure out.
think if we decide to more, if we're not doing an appendix, then I think there's some pieces of our spec will need to be rewritten in some form if we wanted to have it as a, if we wanted UCIe as a tier to BOW in that spec, we definitely have to reword a number of sections that are kind of the way that it refers to.
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's time critical, because I think our contribution, since it refers to the TLL spec, um, I think it can live on its own, right? That contribution document before
Sure.
we roll it into the spec. But it was just, I just was communicating to you where I was thinking maybe we want to go down the road, or some things to consider down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Is there anything other topics that you wanted to bring up, Jeff, or anybody else actually?
Nothing from my side.
Okay. All right. So I think next week we can maybe do a walkthrough of that contribution. I know it's pretty brief, so we'll
Yeah.
probably just talk about it just a little bit.
Okay.
But let's at least make sure we all understand what's in there, and then we could talk about like where we go with the spec and stuff on there on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe by next meeting we can have a proposal too for a C2C variant.
Okay. Okay. Are you putting that together, or did?
Yeah, I can probably start to pull that together.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll be ready by next week, but I think
I,
I just felt like getting ready for the OCP Global Summit presentation. I felt it was really good to kind of start digging into C2C and understand the differences of what we're proposing.
yeah. No, I agree. I think it's important.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks everybody else. I think unless anybody has anything else to bring up, I think we're good for this week. All right. Thanks everybody. See you
Thank
next week.
you. Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Bye bye.